Well, Slanjivar, everyone. I hope you're having a great Sunday. First thing I can hear you say is, Conrad, this is not your normal Johnny Walker Blue Label. And I have to say, you would be correct because this is Glenlevy, the Caribbean Reserve. You see, it's infused with rum barrels from the Caribbean, giving its unique and distinctive flavor. And I'm here to tell you, Slanjivar, definitely one you should add to your morning tipple. Now, another thing I can hear you say is, Conrad, have you gone troppo? And what have English gardens got to do with empire building? And especially what's it got to do with cryptocurrency? Because we're all here and all we want to do is make money. Bear with me. I will regale you with a story. And by the end of this lecture, I am confident that I'm going to instill in you a habit that will enforce you to grow your wealth without even thinking about it. So, first thing we're going to do is talk about English country houses. Why not? Because the real issue here is, well, English gardens, even though I'm sitting here in Scotland, they're not just for beauty. They were controlled environments where the elite gathered, they watched, they negotiated, and they signaled status. Now, in game theory terms, we can say the players were the aristocracy, the politicians, the businessmen, the military officials, and the strategies they employed were alliance building, information exchange, and subtle, and not so subtle, competition. The payoffs they were seeking were influence, resources, and positions of power. Now, just like the English garden, PulseXen is a designed environment, a mathematical one. It rewards patience, positioning, and strategic play rather than random moves. So let's examine game theory in depth because it's vital that we actually understand what it is that we mean by game theory and how does it actually apply to PulseXen. So bear with me while I play this very short video to expound the nature of game theory that we should all understand in life, not just for PulseXen.
Any time that you're interacting with another person who has their own interests and is trying to achieve their own ends, they are trying to do the best they can, given what they want. You're trying to do the best you can, given what you want, and so you're interacting in a strategic situation. Game theory is a mathematical theory that attempts to make sense of how it is that people interact in these strategic situations.
John von Neumann wrote a very important book called The Theory of Games with a guy named Oscar Morgenstern. And in there he laid out game theory. And game theory is the study of decision making under conditions of uncertainty over time.
It was originally developed in economics in order to try and understand economic behavior, like why people buy certain things or why they're willing to work for certain wages. But later on, it was expanded and applied to a variety of different situations, including biology, international relations, and even interpersonal relations like friendship and parenting and family relations. One of the things that game theory has really shown us through recent study has been interactions that we oftentimes think as zero-sum or competitive are not as competitive as they seem. In situations like in the Cold War, which most people thought, that's got to be a zero-sum game if anything is, we discovered that actually there were opportunities for mutual cooperation. Arms reduction treaties are a great example. The US and the USSR figured out that if they could find a way to cooperate, they could both save an enormous amount of money and effort by reducing the number of weapons that they have. Reagan and Gorbachev negotiated the START treaty with one another. And one of the big problems that they had is, how can you be sure that while you're eliminating nuclear weapons, your adversary is also eliminating nuclear weapons? So rather than saying, we're just going to get rid of some large percentage of our nuclear weapons and hope that the USSR would do so as well, they broke up the interaction into a bunch of little tiny ones. So the USSR would eliminate just a few nuclear weapons, then the US would eliminate just a few nuclear weapons. They would check, and then they would go on to the next stage. And then each would eliminate a few more, and they'd go on to the next stage. This process of taking a big interaction and breaking it down into little small parts can change a bad social dilemma into a positive interaction. What I do in my personal life, and I think almost everyone can do in their personal life, is to try and think, in this interaction, what outcome would be good for both parties, and how can we achieve that outcome? And by thinking about everything in that way, we oftentimes transform something that seems like a situation where there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser into one where nobody feels like they've lost and everybody benefits.
John von Neumann based game theory on a stripped-down version of poker.
In any given poker situation, you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, and it's all about how to make the best decision in any given moment. And that's so integral to life. Everything we try to do, should we take this route or that route? Should I go here on vacation or there? It's all about dealing with uncertainties and probabilities of things happening. And poker is a very fun and easy way to teach someone how to do that. First rule of thumb is how to extract the most money or chips from your opponent when you have a strong hand, and how to lose the minimum when you have a weak hand. You're never going to be 100% certain where you are you beating them, or do you have a worse hand? So you have to sort of construct a strategy that is mathematically optimal in each situation. The most damaging bias that can come up in poker, and I also think very often in life, is the sunk cost fallacy, where you'll have a lot of chips, perhaps almost all of your stack is in the middle, and yet you are 85 to 90% confident that you have the worst hand. Putting another chip in the pot is probably not a good idea, but we'll often go to ourselves, well, I've gone this far, I've put this much in, I might as well see it through to the end. But if you have very strong information that actually from this point onwards, putting more money in the pot is a bad idea, then you shouldn't. But we have this belief that, well, I've put this much time in or this much effort, that we should continue on. That can be very, very costly.
Once you start paying attention to the sunk cost fallacy, once it's on your radar, you'll probably notice at least a few things that you wish you were doing differently. Those might be small scale. In my case, I'm now much more willing to abandon a book that I've realized I'm not enjoying and not getting any value out of, rather than trudging dutifully through the remainder of the book just because I've already come 100 pages. These changes might also be large scale. For example, I was in a PhD program and at a certain point realized with increasing certainty that I wasn't happy in this field and would probably be better off switching, and that the only reason that I had stuck with it as long as I had was because of my fear of confronting the sunk cost of 4 to 5 years that I'd spent preparing for and working in the PhD. And sometimes it really does take time to fully acknowledge to yourself that you don't have any good reason to stick with the job or PhD or project that you've been working on so long, because sunk costs are painful. But at least having the sunk cost fallacy on your radar means that you have the opportunity at least to push past that and make the choice that instead will lead to the better outcomes for your future.
Game theory spent much of its early days analyzing zero-sum games, where one party's going to win and the other party's going to lose, and trying to figure out what's the best strategy. What game theorists have figured out is that in zero-sum games, the best strategy to pursue when you're against a sophisticated opponent is to adopt the strategy which minimizes your maximum loss. This is sometimes called the mini-max strategy. So the idea is you think, what's the worst case scenario for me? What could my opponent do that would make me worse off? And then you figure out what's the best strategy against that. So you're minimizing your maximum loss. Game theorists prove that if you use this way of thinking, minimizing your maximum loss, You ensure that no matter how sophisticated your opponent is, you've guarded against the worst case scenario. And not only that, but in zero-sum games, you've done the best you can possibly do.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers. To learn even more from the world's biggest thinkers, get Big Think Plus for your business.
Now, John Nyman was a very, very, very clever man, but he isn't anywhere near as rich as I am. Now, why is that? Well, basically because there was never a mathematical environment that was coded and immutable, cryptocurrency, especially PulseX, that his theorems could be applied to. You, on the other hand, can take 1% of his intellect and be able to apply the theories that he came up with and win this game of wealth because you have heard of PulseX. And for those of you who are just joining, this is PulseX, the ultimate game changer to wealth that there has ever been in society. You are able to actually increase your wealth by following the rules of game theory with PulseX. Let me show you, if I can, what I'm actually talking about. Now, I really want you to pay attention to this, because as simple as this is the key to growing wealth. So here we have a typical game theory graph of the relationship between what you're doing or you're going to do and what other people are going to do. So let's expand on this for PulseX. And we have a scenario where most people are holding. They bought PZEN and they hold. Now, if you buy at that point, then you are going to gain as the price goes up, and you're being exposed to the automatic yield through the pay forward code. Now, the other way that you could play it is if you're seeing that most people are holding, you also hold. Now, what that means for you in the ecosystem, in the environment, is you're getting stability and you're getting compounding interest simply by holding PulseX just like everybody else. Now, if people are holding and you're selling, the problem is that the price rises without you, and you are no longer going to get that yield. It's a lose-lose situation for you. Now, but on the other hand, at this particular moment, most people are selling. What are you going to do? Well, if you buy, which takes enormous psychological courage and discipline, but if you buy at this stage where everybody else is selling, you are going to get cheap accumulation of PulseX. Basically, you're going to be able to buy PulseX at a cheaper price than everybody else. And that also means as you accumulate, you're going to get more of the PIF. So it's a win-win situation for you whilst most people are selling. Now, if you just hold, that's probably the best outcome because that's the maximum rewards that you're ever going to achieve without spending more money. But if you sell, again, you are going to regret it because probably you sold before the pump. And I'm pretty sure that is where we are right now. On the other hand, if most people are already buying, then you can buy, but you might be buying at the wrong time. Your entry point could be the FOMO top. Now, as we're only a very, very early protocol, that position is very, very unlikely to occur at this stage. So you can basically discount that a little bit. But if most people are buying and you just hold, well, that means you will get passive income from the pump without spending any more money. So it's not a bad strategy. But if you sell when most people are buying, you're going to miss out on the PIF because that is going to go to other people. Give me 1 second. not used to the dry central heating. Yes, it's cold in Scotland, and I was going to take you around the garden today, but a little technical fault occurred, rain, so that's why we're sitting in the snug here. So that's game theory in a nutshell that you can apply right now today. You're probably already doing. One more thing that you can do to alleviate all this brain pressure is to dollar cost average, because by dollar cost averaging, you're actually playing game theory as a particular strategy, because with dollar cost averaging, you get the best of both worlds. Normally, when the price is up, you're going to get less PZEN. If the price is down, you're going to get more PZEN. But averaged out, you accumulate. And by accumulating PulseX, you're going to increase the yield that you get going forward. This is a long time strategy. This is a long-term coin to be holding in your portfolio. It is not a meme coin or a meme coin. It does something. It has utility in that it provides you with coded yield. You don't have to do anything. You just buy, hold, and every single day you are going to get more and more Pulse Zen. It's inevitable. It is inevitable at this stage of the game where people are only just beginning to wake up to the idea of what cryptocurrency is, and it's actually going to be force-fed by governments around the world. Everybody is going to be holding crypto at some time or other in the future, because they're going to get massive exposure to it from the governments, who absolutely explicitly want you to use cryptocurrency. Now, I won't go there. Not going to talk about central bank digital currencies or stable coins, that they're now calling them. I think it's a terrible idea, but hey ho, if it gets more people involved in cryptocurrency, it can't be all bad. Now, having said that, let's just explain again what we can expect from PulseX from now going forward. It's critical to understand how this protocol actually works on your behalf. So bear with me while I just show you today's figures.
The power of PulseX is in the compounding interest code. Let's look at today's numbers. 1 million PulseX at $0.001200. It would cost $1,200. The daily pay it forward code can average for the year 500 PulseX per 1 million held. So you are making about 60 cents a day, or $218 or so a year. So that works out to a very nice 18% a year, no staking, no lockup. However, if we allow ourselves to imagine the growth in PulseX, imagine daily volume increases, and price is 30 cents. Everything looks shockingly different. The daily PIF is now $120 a day, at 30 cents per PulseX. That generates compounding rewards of about $43,800 a year, which is a staggering 1,460% APY. Go see for yourself at pulsezen.app.
Now, I can show you this video till the cows come home, but if you don't believe, if you don't think it's possible, then it's never going to happen for you, because you're going to sell. You're going to be flooded out by, whoever, whatever. I mean, on Pulse Chain right now, it seems to be that a good 99% of protocols that have been launched in the near future are for one aim and one aim only: to get the creators of the coin rich by taking the money from you. This is called taking advantage. It's fraud, and I very much recommend that you do your due diligence very, very careful. These guys are professionals. They are professionals in NLP. They're professionals in bullshit. They're professionals in getting you to give your hard-earned fiat currency to them. So be careful, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful of whom you listen to. That is for sure. Now, let's take a look at what else is going on in the crypto world, because it's been a tumultuous week. And if I can just show you, we'll have a look at where Pulse chain is in relation to everyone else, and also the coins on Pulse chain. So bear with me while I find the actual thing. Yeah, okay, here we go. So the top core coins, and us, don't forget us, tiny little PulseZen. Pulse is up a little bit to almost half of sacrifice price. PLSX is up to 33. Inc is up to 1.89. All of these figures, of course, considerably down from the other day. Hex itself is down considerably, but it's up today to 5.68. I think it was up to a healthy 0.015 at one stage, and EHEX is 0.0019. So overall, yeah, a okay day for today. We're up, we're in the green, that's good, but significantly down on the year still, which is not good. Are we going to start to see these prices exponentially increase before the end of the year? And the answer is yes, we are. I'm a firm believer that everything that's going on right now is going to be a valuable input to the world of Pulse chain. And if we can look at something else, we can have a look at the chain ranking of Pulse chain today. Let's have a look. This will show the actual figures for today from the chain ranking on CoinGecko. And you can see that as of this afternoon, PulseZen is about 15. If I could just find the screen that shows that, and we'll show you. Well, let's jump to over here, chain rankings. Don't know why that wasn't up. You can see 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. No. Why is that? There we go. Do we have it now? No, we don't. Why is that? Definitely says chain rankings. Chain rankings, top blockchains by network by DEX value. Oh, well, this is not showing what I expected it to show, but I think PulseZen is about number 15 by TVL today, which is not bad. Not as good as it should be, but it's not bad. Now, let's have a look at PulseZen. How are we doing today? If I come back and I show you the screen, I can show you what it looks like. Okay, not bad. We're up a little bit today at 0.001204. Now, obviously, we've gone up quite a lot since the beginning of July, and there had to be some kind of drawdown. This is all in relation to what happened on Friday, because we had a meltdown on the stock market, mainly caused by the ruckus around Donald Trump's trade wars. People don't understand it. They're concerned. It's finalized on Friday, then it's not finalized on Friday. Some people have got 7 days grace. Some countries have got 90-day grace. So the set in stone 1st of August trade tariffs, well, that went by the bye-bye. And of course, the markets do not like uncertainty, and they certainly don't like the uncertainty that Donald Trump seems to be providing. However, I really feel that the markets are totally overreacting to what's going on. And I genuinely believe that Donald Trump's trade tariffs negotiating tactics are actually aligned with his whole life of actually doing negotiations. And if you follow his history, if history is to be reckoned with, he will win. And that does mean that the American economy is going to grow phenomenally this year. And with all the very positive crypto acts, not so much the tax one, but the crypto acts that have been enacted so far this year have been extremely positive towards cryptocurrency. Now, what else is happening then? Well, let me just show you what happened on Friday. We had a particularly bad sell-off on not only the S&P, but the NASDAQ as well. They were showing very strong declines. If I can show you anything here we go. Let's just have a look at the figures. That's something for another day, but let's put this into perspective now. We've had a very strong run up in the stock markets, and the lows that we are coming off of because of the trade tariff negotiations and a very poor jobs report, we're seeing, decreases of maybe 2%. Now, to me, is that a sell-off? I don't think so. But the markets seem to think that 2% down is not very good. Well, compared to the rest of July, for example, it's not very good, but it's been tremendously strong from that point on. Now, an interesting thing that I've also seen here is that if you look at the price of gold, the traditional safe haven, it's actually stayed pretty flat for most of the year, hovering around $3,400. Now, clearly, it's had a very big run up for the first quarter, but it's not really done that much over the next few quarters right up until today, which is something, I suppose. So, what else can we talk about? Well, I think one of the most interesting things is the fact that we have Tornado Cash being taken to court. The trial is going on for what's his name, Strong. Now, I actually think that it is preposterous that we should have a judge and a case that says that writing privacy code is not only a bad thing, they think that it is illegal. So, thinking this forward to what happened just recently with Richard Hart and the SEC, this is unbelievable that this case is still going forward. The amount of rubbish evidence that the government has provided is terrible. And Roman's been on the stand and he refused to testify on his own behalf. And I don't blame him. I think pleading the fifth is probably the best way to go. There is a small little problem about a vast amount of money being laundered by North Korea, and he enabled it. You could say that in a sentence, but then I have to ask, from my point of view, if this is a privacy tool, why on earth, or how on earth did they manage to find out that the North Koreans actually laundered billions of dollars through his protocol? That either means that the protocol never worked, or the government is getting data from somewhere else. And I think that somewhere else is probably the most liable cause of this incident. I mean, the lady who complained, first of all, it was categorically proven that none of that money that she was claiming laundered through Tornado Cash, it never got there. So, and her evidence is being admitted, even though it's been pointed out that it's false, it's been admitted as evidence. This is mind-blowing. It's incredible at this stage of the game that it can be allowed to continue. For God's sake, somebody stand up and be the adult in the room. We absolutely need privacy for blockchain transactions. This business about chasing wallets and knowing what's in your wallet, it's like saying, you can know what everybody has in a bank account. Why? Why do you expect to have that privilege? Privacy is a basic human right. Now, I know that the United States government doesn't think that, but it is. I, at one stage of my life, used to work in Hong Kong, and my salary when I was working was actually public. It was mandatory that all our salaries were made public to the general public, which in my mind was insane. And it caused me a lot of angst, but I couldn't do anything, especially when the Chinese were about to take over. So there we have it. but it is a thorn in my side, and it is something that needs to be fixed. I think Roman's initial idea of Tornado Cash was a very, very good one. Let's see what's going to happen with that. Other things that have been happening are, well, I'm not sure if there's anything else that is of any interest. Not really. We've seen big drop off in Bitcoin, a lot of outflows in Bitcoin this week, a lot of liquidations this week. But again, I think that going forward, when we get some stability in the markets, especially over what Trump is trying to do, then we might see some sanity back into the crypto markets. Because once they're calmer, then the money returns to crypto. Any time that we have a stock market event or a crypto event, it seems to have a strong impact on the inflows and outflows to the cryptocurrency market. It being so nascent and it being so small, it's bound to have an amplified effect on the markets. But going forward, as liquidity deepens, as people's perception of crypto changes dramatically going forward, there is only one way, and that one way is up. That's for all cryptos, and that is potentially the same, if not greater, for PulseX. Do not forget there are two aspects of PulseX. One is price appreciation, and the other is continual and perpetual compounding interest of about 18%. Nowhere can you achieve that with such a reliable, predictable, and stable cryptocurrency in this regime that we find ourselves in. So that's my little rant for today. Do we have any burning questions? It's very nice to see the price of PulseX increasing and stabilizing, even with all the bad news that's going forward. Hopefully, we can look forward to a fantastic week. Let's just have a look at some comments. Red Hulk 81 says, PZEN, everyone should have long term, easily $1 in a few years or even less. I would say what extravagant taste is. Amen to that. Xerex Zenite, another valued member of the community, says, thanks, Conrad. We are a top performing token on PulseChain. God Candle is imminent. I would hesitate, but I would actually agree with you. Who else do we have? Gaurav. Looking forward to this. Thank you very much for your support. I know you've been around for a while, and I really appreciate your comments. Anybody else have any burning questions for today before I sign off? And hopefully the rain will have stopped, allowing me to walk down to the pub. Sanjivar, everyone. Take a quick dram. Don't be shy. There's no such thing as a stupid question, only stupid answers, which I'm very capable of giving you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. We'll wrap it up today as I lose my voice. Much more to come, much more price action to come. I'm absolutely convinced of that. PulseChain is going to go exponential. PulseX is going to go exponential. You are so lucky to be involved. For those of you who are already into PulseX, and if you're not, do a bit more research. And I guarantee you're going to come to the same conclusion that the other nearly 10,000 people that are in this protocol, both on Ethereum and PulseChain, they have come to that conclusion. You're just a little bit behind. So, from Conrad Zen and PulseX, I'm signing off for today, and I wish you a very exciting week going forward.
Well, good morning, my fellow Zenites. Did you check your PulseX wallet balance with your coffee this morning?